Let's explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
We're still under a caution. I want you to back out on that track and hit the pace car. Hit the pace car? Hit the pace car! What for? Because you hit every other goddamn thing out there. I want you to be perfect. Go on, go, go, go! Hey!
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. A little bit of a cold intro there with the late and great Robert Duvall, who has tragically passed away. I mean, tragic. He was 84, but yeah, Robert.
Was he really that young? I honestly thought he was way older than that, but yeah, I mean, it's tragic either way. I mean, sad either way, but yeah.
He's an icon, man. An icon. One of my favorite actors of all time, man. This one really hurts. Clint Eastwood's the only one that's going to be harder than this. But
yeah, he's he was definitely in a lot of really memorable films. He was one of those actors I feel like never aged. Like he always kind of felt like he was old, right? Like I felt like even movies like 25, 30 years ago, he felt like he was the same age he is now or was now.
Yeah, he looked maybe he was older than that. I think I might be confusing it with Jesse Jackson, who also passed
away. I want to say he was in his 90s. I might be wrong about that, but like that film you just showed, Days of Thunder, that was a early 90s film, right?
He was 95. Excuse me. I am incorrect on that. So thank the chat corrected me there. Jackson.
That sounds more right. Yeah. Days of Thunder was 1990, and he like in that movie, he feels kind of old in that movie, right?
Yeah, the racing at the end, when he's racing Tom Cruise, I'll race you for it, and they take off. Yeah, he looks like an old man in that big old beer belly. And
granted, he's looking at it now, he's 60. So I mean, it's like I hope I can sprint down like a NASCAR track when I'm 60.
Heck yeah. And of course his film and his role as the consigliere in Godfather was incredible as well. So
yeah.
But that's my favorite clip. Hit the pace car. What do you mean hit the pace car? Hit the pace car. You've hit every other damn thing.
Yeah. He did kind of become almost like a what's it called? Is it called like a it's like when you play this like a certain actor in all the movies, because his character in that movie was very similar to the character he played like in Armageddon and like a lot of those other like big blockbuster movies, right? He always kind of plays like the kind of like ornery, like older guy who's really smart, and kind of smacks the other guys in the head and says like, stop being an idiot, do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, going all the way back to The Godfather, that was his job as the consigliere.
Yes. Yes, correct.
The only non-Italian person in the Corleone crime family.
Not Jewish either, right? I don't think he was Jewish in the movie, but
no, I don't. He might have been Jewish in the movie. His last name was Hagen.
Oh, so, maybe he was. Yeah, but they weren't very like forthright with like the whole Jewish mafia thing. Although in the second one they kind of were. Anyway, I digress.
Let me look that up because I think he was Irish, actually.
Yeah.
He was Irish. Yeah, he was Irish American with German.
Irish, yeah, which makes sense because I've gone and looked at the history of it. The Irish gangs were the first gangs. That's like gangs in New York. Those
Mhm.
are the gangs that ran New York. Then the Italians came in and kind of took over the streets, and then Eastern Europeans came in. Jewish mobsters came in, and the Jewish mobsters taught the Italian mobsters how to be white collar criminals as opposed to just like a network of pickpockets and thugs.
All right. So before we get into the show, real quick, we did have a Badlands boost on Valentine's Day that I missed from JC Bird. CannCon and Friends, always a great show, I think you meant, but shoe. I can take that. Great shoe. Everybody loves a great shoe. Thank you for everything. God bless you all, JC. And thank you so much, JC. Deeply appreciate that. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into our sponsors and we'll get into the news for today. And first up, ladies and gentlemen, we've got River. Stack Sats with River, the Bitcoin only platform built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Why River? Zero fee reoccurring buys, stack Bitcoin effortlessly, hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly. 3.5% Bitcoin interest on cash with FDI insurance, no minimums, and you can withdraw at any time. Expert US-based support with human help, plus private client services for bigger buys over $100,000. Business accounts boost your balance sheet with Bitcoin and earn 3.5% interest paid in Bitcoin. Top tier wallets to send, receive, and manage Bitcoin securely. And of course, unmatched security with full reserve custody, multi-sig cold storage, and proof of reserves. Join the Bitcoin revolution now at badlandsmedia.tv/river and earn some real returns. Again, that's badlandsmedia.tv/river. And now is a great time. If you've been looking to get in, now's a great time. It's been holding steady around 68. And so, you know, that's well off of its previous high of 120, almost 100%. So you guys, great time to buy in. Buy the dips, they say.
It's so funny because like you look at 68 and you're like, but back when it was like 115, you're like kicking yourself, like, why didn't I buy more when it was 68?
Yeah,
right. And now it's at 68. You're like, oh, well, maybe it'll go down further. Maybe it'll go down like another 5%, and then I'll buy in. But then when it shoots back up to 95, everyone's gonna be like, shit, why didn't I get it at 68? Right.
Yeah.
So
my
that's why you just do recurring buys. You just don't even, you set it and forget it and just.
That's what I do. I have a recurring buy for every month.
Stack.
I had a buy order in for 59. And when it went up to 120, I was like, I could take this buy order off because it wouldn't let me use any of the, because I keep cash in there too, like because you get 3.5% interest. That's way better than any.
I keep some in there too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And they pay it in Bitcoin. So, you know, it's likely to go up. And so, yeah, I took that, canceled that. And so we'll see. But our next sponsor, once you buy the Bitcoin, you can keep it in your cold storage right here with Trezor. Your crypto deserves the ultimate protection, and Trezor delivers just that. Trezor offers a secure and user-friendly solution for managing your digital assets. It delivers on its promise of robust security, providing a crucial layer of protection against online threats and unauthorized access. Since 2014, over 2 million users have trusted Trezor, the world's first hardware wallet, to secure their Bitcoin, Ethereum, and over 9,000 other coins and tokens. With state-of-the-art encryption and offline storage, Trezor keeps your assets safe from hackers, malware, and exchange breaches. Its open source design ensures transparency, while the Trezor Suite apps makes managing your portfolio a breeze. Buy, sell, swap, and track with ease. Designed with simplicity in mind, Trezor ensures that even those new to crypto can navigate with ease. With Trezor, you can confidently manage your cryptocurrencies, knowing that your digital wallet is protected by industry-leading security protocols. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/Trezor to get your Trezor and safeguard your crypto with confidence. Again, that's badlandsmedia.tv/TREZOR. All right. And on that note, let's go ahead and jump into the news. Smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. And, you know, like I had mentioned earlier, Reverend Jesse Jackson also passed away. He was the one that was 84.
I missed that. Okay.
Yeah. President Trump put this out. The Reverend Jesse Jackson, dead at 84. I knew him well long before becoming president. He was a good man with lots of personality, grit, and street smarts. He was also very gregarious. Someone who truly loved people, despite the fact that I am falsely and consistently called a racist by the scoundrels and lunatics on the radical left. Democrats all, it was always my pleasure to help Jesse along the way. I provided office space for him and his Rainbow Coalition for years in the Trump building at 40 Wall Street. Responded to his request for help in getting criminal justice reform passed and signed when no other president would even try. Single-handedly pushed and passed long-term funding for historical black colleges and universities, which Jesse loved, but also which other presidents would not do. I now responded to Jesse's support for opportunity zones, the single most successful economic development package yet approved for black business men and women, and much more. Jesse was a force of nature like few others before him. He had much to do with the election without acknowledgement or credit of Barack Hussein Obama, a man who Jesse could not stand. He loved his family greatly, and to them, I send my deepest sympathies and condolences. Jesse will be missed. President Donald J. Trump. It's interesting remark about Obama there, that Jesse Jackson couldn't stand him.
You gotta love Trump, man. He's so good at getting those jabs in when he's paying, even when he's doing something solemn or like paying someone a compliment or whatever. He is really, really good at getting those jabs in. Yeah, because a lot of people don't like Obama. Obama apparently is actually kind of a dick, and I mean that's at least what's said. And I think many such cases when it comes to these wannabe celebrities, politicians, they all seem like kind of bad people. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at the time frame, 2008 and 2012 when Obama was elected, and both of those years, I mean, Trump wasn't in the political spotlight. He wasn't thought to be running for president. Well, I mean, there's always speculation, but he wasn't front and center. Now he was in 2012 because of the birth certificate thing, but in 2008, he was still in those circles. And so, maybe he does have some insight as to how Jesse Jackson actually felt about Barack Obama. Very, very interesting remark to make in, kind of a eulogy type of Truth Social post.
Yeah, and we don't need to play all the videos, but you can easily, I'm looking at them right now, you can go on just Brave or Google or YouTube and just search Jesse Jackson gives praises Trump, and there are so many old videos from C-SPAN. I'm looking at one right now of Jesse Jackson praising Trump for helping black and minority communities, right? So it's these people were all very, very highly complimentary of Trump. Al Sharpton's another one. Al Sharpton I think he gave Rosa Parks and Jesse Jackson, or Rosa Parks and Trump medals side by side.
Yep.
Yeah. It's these people are just very dishonest, very, very dishonest.
I do want to point out, because we're going to be covering this here on this show, Carrying the Fire 7 also left a Badlands boost that I missed that said, the Bannon thing is troubling. I can see merit with both sides. His views were good, except his view on China. It just fell off big time. Matt Ehret pointed this out very well. Let's see if Natalie Winters leaves the war room. That would be telling. I don't know if you can comment on the Matt Ehret part. I'm not familiar with what he said about that. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Matt doesn't like Bannon. Matt thinks that Bannon is bad news bears, and I get it. I understand why he views him that way, because of Bannon has some background that is a little Seuss. He worked for he worked as an analyst at Goldman Sachs for 2 years, which to me it's you work at a company for 2 years as an analyst. It doesn't really mean anything. It's not the same as going and working for the CIA for 2 years, right? Yeah, I wrote a take about this actually this morning, and if you want to start with that,
sure. I called an audible. We're gonna go into the Epstein to start the show. So if you want,
okay, cool. Yeah. Let me pull this up. So I did notice this evolving. This is a track that I am
hang on. Is this going to take us straight into Bannon?
Yeah. Let's talk about Epstein Bannon. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let me start with this then, because this just came out. Hyatt's Tom Pritzker announces retirement, citing Epstein association, and this will lead into the Bannon thing here. So, Executive Chairman Tom Pritzker, yes, that is relation to JB Pritzker, the Hyatt empire, said he would retire from his position at the company, citing an association with the late disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. Quote, "My job and responsibility is to provide good stewardship. That is important to me. Good stewardship includes ensuring a proper transition at Hyatt. Good stewardship also means protecting Hyatt, particularly in the context of my association with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, which I deeply regret. I exercise terrible judgment in maintaining contact with them, and there's no excuse for failing to distance myself sooner. I condemn the actions and the harm caused by Epstein and Maxwell, and I feel deep sorrow for the pain that they inflicted on their victims." And this is like not very, I don't know. This doesn't sound so great to me, considering some of the mentions of him. Kenko the Great put this out. Billionaire Hyatt Hotel executive chairman Thomas Pritzker, identified in the Epstein documents, allegedly involved in sexual activities with Epstein victims. This was back in January of 2024 that he posted this, by the way. "How many times have you had sex with Tom Pritzker? I believe I was with Tom once." And I think that's Virginia Gouffre's testimony there. "Thomas is the heir to the Pritzker family, which includes at least 11 billionaires. Notable members include the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, and Harvard board chair Penny Pritzker." And there's more to it. So this is the from the deposition here. "How many times have you had sex with Tom Pritzker? Do you know what that question means?" "I believe so." "And what is the answer to that question?" "I believe I was with Tom once." Liz Crokin put this out on X, who's been all over this stuff since the beginning. And she posted this, I think, back in 2023. Epstein victim Virginia Gouffre claimed she was forced to have sex with Pritzker. Pritzker was listed as numero uno in Epstein's black book. Epstein had a dozen numbers for him, including an emergency contact number. Pritzker fought the court to keep the record sealed, shedding light on his relationship with the serial pedophile. What were Epstein, Pritzker, and Gates really plotting at this meeting? And did Epstein and anyone in the pedophile ring use any of Pritzker's Hyatt hotel properties to commit crimes against children? So interesting assertions there from Liz Crokin. And then this is the most concerning email, in my opinion. This was written on June 6, 2011, and Pritzker wrote to a redacted name. I'm assuming it's Epstein, but we don't know. "I'm in a remote valley in Afghanistan. It's my birthday wish with boys with toys. Spent time with Petraeus yesterday, and he loaned me a chopper, actually two, with one as a backup. Can't call until tomorrow." And this was in response to Epstein saying time to speak. So it's interesting that they redacted the two in that message, but not in the one right below it.
What's the time difference there? So who sent the first one? What did Epstein say it first? And then he responded,
Epstein sent it at 10:20, time to speak, and Pritzker responded at 3:39, so 5 hours later.
You were in Afghanistan when?
I was there in this time.
So you were there in 2011.
Yeah.
What would it have been like for a guy like Tom Pritzker to be in Afghanistan in a remote valley?
Well, so that's what I posted. Now, he was there on a task force for small business opportunity or something like that, which apparently I don't know why they were there in 2011. This was OEF2. So this was a big push. It was a dangerous place when I was there in 2011, especially, he says he was in a remote valley, especially in a remote valley like that, because that's where all and we weren't fighting the Taliban. We were fighting drug lords. That's where all the drug lords were at the time, and where they were, the harvesting takes place in these valleys. And so that's not a very safe place to be. And then when he says boys with toys, and it's my birthday wish. Now you can take that a couple different ways. Boys with toys could be Marines and soldiers with, tanks and, all sorts of explosives and that kind of stuff. Or it could be, as is common for elites in Afghanistan, to have chai boys, right? To have young boys that perform provocative dances for people. I've walked in on these before.
Bocce boys, yeah.
Bocce boys, yep. That's what we called them, chai boys. So,
which is unique to that region. That's not like something that is across the Middle East. That's like unique to like the Afghanistan, Pakistan area, like Baluchistan, is my understanding is where all that stuff comes from. And I'm sorry, finish your thought.
Well, it's just, when you see remote valley Afghanistan, it's my birthday wish, and boys with toys, it's
capitalized.
Very
and
capitalized is weird. When you put all the context together, it's hard not to imagine boys with toys as being bocce boys and as being, Chai Boys and having that performance done. Now, most of it, as far as I know, when the village elders did this type of stuff, it didn't always lead to, like, I don't know if it led to sexual intercourse, rape or not. But again, this is pretty concerning. Now, I started doing a dig this morning, and unfortunately it consumed a lot of my prep time, on Petraeus and the mention in this, because Petraeus was at this time, he was the U.S. NATO commander in Afghanistan. Like, he had command of all the forces, David Petraeus. But at that time, June 6th, he had already been appointed to be the director of the CIA. He just hadn't taken that role yet. He didn't take that role.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't take that role until a month later. So it's when you put together the context of everything in this email right here, there's a lot to unpack in those, 3 sentences.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And him being there, meeting with people. Like, I actually interviewed a guy named Mike Smith, who was the editor of Veterans, I think it's Veterans Affairs magazine, which is like a pretty based magazine. He was the financial editor, I think. Really, really interesting guy. Him and this PhD developed. They were the ones who coined the term Khazarian Mafia like 10 years ago, to describe like the transnational cartel. And he spent like a ton of time in Afghanistan over the past 20 years, 25 years, trying to meeting with the Taliban. Like, I don't know who this guy was meeting with, but meeting with the Taliban to help them kind of develop like economic, like to develop economy, so that the idea was, if these guys have opportunity to make money, they will be like, their villagers will be a lot less inclined to accept a bag of cash from the CIA to go, blow up a school or something, which is how the CIA gets them to do that stuff. They just give them money and they say, hey, go blow this thing up. And then they film it and say, ooh, terrorism. But it's just some idiot getting paid to do something stupid. That's at least what I've been told by various people. Anyway, the Petraeus thing is interesting. Him meeting with Petraeus, mentioning Petraeus, sketchy. Pritzker, obviously, is a name that is notable because is Tom the brother of the governor of Illinois? Is that?
Yeah, I think they're brothers.
Because their father is mentioned pretty often. I mean, not often, but he's mentioned several times in The Art of the Deal by Trump, Jay Pritzker.
Oh, they're cousins. They're cousins.
Oh, they're cousins. Okay, yeah, but Tom Pritzker's father, I just looked it up, is Jay Pritzker, who is I think he's the one who founded the Hyatt Hotel thing. If he's not, he's like the immediate heir. But that's not surprising that he would be in The Art of the Deal, because he's a hotel guy and Trump's a hotel guy. But yeah, this whole like Pritzker is just one of those names that I saw someone in the chat say it's one of those families, and it's like, yeah, it is. It's one of those families that seems to have a lot of power and seems to be in politics and seems to be, I mean, obviously hanging out with guys like Epstein. This guy, the way when you read his original like statement, that is such a guilty statement. He's like, I exercised really bad judgment. Shouldn't have done that. Whoops, sorry, my bad. See you later. Yeah. He's basically admitting that, yeah, I did something that I'm really ashamed of. And if I just fall on the sword right now and duck out, maybe I can avoid too much focus, like scrutiny on this. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you put all, like, if it was just a random email where the guy's like, oh, I'm in a remote valley in Afghanistan, boys with toys, I'd be like, yeah, you're hanging out with a bunch of Marines and you're blowing shit up. Like, that's cool stuff. But given the context of Epstein, Pritzker being his numero uno in his phone, 12 different contacts, including an emergency contact. They have a bunch of other communications back and forth between the two of them. It's hard not to imagine the worst possible, assumption of what boys with toys actually means. But again, who knows? You can't pass judgment. It could very well be just a bunch of servicemen with explosives.
And I've come to appreciate now that, like, I mean, we were definitely in Afghanistan for the opium. I think that was a big part, the Sackler family getting the opium for them. But another really big part of it, the geography, was keeping pipelines from being built between Iran and China. I think that was a big thing, was making sure that there wasn't like a geographic relationship, land-based relationship between, or like a trade route between China and Iran. I think that was another reason that that we were there. So it's interesting that like a guy like Pritzker, who it's like, why the hell are you in Afghanistan, bro? Like even if you're claiming that you're there for like economic envoy reasons,
But that's the other thing. If he's over there for trade, there is no trade that's going to be taking place in any remote valley. These are places that don't have paved roads. They don't have running water. They don't even have electricity.
Yeah.
You know, like the place that we were at.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. The place we were at, they got electricity one night a week. Like that's it. And that's only because they weren't capable. Now you could make the argument, oh, well, the task force was there to develop these areas. Well, you would stay in Kandahar. Again, 2011, remote valleys in Afghanistan was not a place for a billionaire to be. No matter how many, and he said we had 2 helicopters. One was a backup. Okay, you put 4 Marines on there, and that's your protective detail. Granted, there's probably a fob or something out there that they landed in and had. Whatever.
But they're goat herders. Like you can't grow anything in Afghanistan, right? Like you grow opium.
Well, no, in the valleys you can. In the valleys, because there's usually a wadi running through the valley, and they get water
but I mean, you're not export. Like they're not like export.
No. They don't have any trade. No, their trade is all whatever they grow, they take to the market.
Yeah. So anyway, so let's. Don't know if you have anything else on that.
No, you can jump. I have a New York Times piece on Bannon, but
let's pivot to the New York Times piece because it might be the article that I was going to pull anyway.
Okay, so this was New York Times put this out. Despite Epstein's toxicity, Steve Bannon stood by him. Text indicate. I think I think Bannon is setting all of this up personally.
Me too.
And this is why. It says in late June 2019, Bannon sent Epstein an excited series of text messages. Dude, he wrote, is this real? Tell me this is real. Epstein had just texted him a headline from the Miami Herald that victims of Epstein's sexual abuse case had lost a court battle to nullify a decade-old agreement that protected him from prosecution for those crimes. So in other words, Bannon is saying, hey, are you still under this prosecution protection order? And he's saying, yeah, I am. They lost their court battle. Okay, that's good for Bannon, who's about to sit down and do a documentary or has been sitting down doing a documentary with them. Bannon had been advising Epstein on how to handle resurrected allegations that he was a serial pedophile. Bannon recommended which lawyers to hire, his own, which is interesting, when to lie low and when he should jump on an opening to push his narrative. He scheduled what the 2 men called media training. Epstein-related documents reveal for the first time the extent of Bannon's efforts to advise Epstein when many of his friends were abandoning him. In the 6 months before Epstein was arrested and charged in July of 2019, Bannon's name appeared nearly every day in the files, often because the 2 men exchanged texts. Bannon says, quote, I am a filmmaker and a TV host with decades of experience interviewing controversial figures. That's the only lens through which these private communications should be viewed. A documentary filmmaker working over a period of time to secure 50 hours of interviews from a reclusive subject. He said the film would fully expose Epstein and, quote, destroy the very myths that he created. And Bannon planned to release the film, now 6 years in the making, later this year. Very interesting timing on that. A spokesman for Bannon said his client sought to only ingratiate himself with Epstein for the documentary, but Epstein was eager to cater to Bannon's wishes and needs. He shipped Bannon and his son Apple Watches. He offered his private jet to fly around Europe. Bannon even was offered a full medical workup from Epstein's quote unquote private area at a high-end concierge emergency clinic, telling him that, quote, your medical expenses from A to Z have been covered by me. Bannon never saw Epstein's doctor, nor did he ever fly on Epstein's private jet. And then from there, the piece goes on just to outline, some of the troubles that Bannon's had over the past few years as they've gone after him with the lawfare. Now, we can get into your piece first before you want to get into your piece now?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me pull this up. So we have.
Do you want to watch the clip on his?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and do everything you have on Bannon, and then I can kind of show what I have.
All right, so here's the trailer for his documentary, and I do think the timing is very, very curious here.
Yeah.
Next month marks 2 years since the death of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein inside a New York City jail.
We were underage. We were little girls. By the time I was 16, I brought him up to 75 girls.
He was glib, and he lived essentially like he was Gatsby. He was an absolutely terrifying person to encounter.
You own an island, right?
Thank you very much.
Two islands, the islands of Dr. Moreau.
Correct.
Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire New York businessman whose vast wealth brought an arrogance that knew no limits. He acted as if he could have anything he craved.
Reporting the FBI is now looking into how it can interview Britain's Prince Andrew over his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I made my living from old thinking, but the future is for the way women think.
The way women think.
That's correct.
Is that not a sop because of all the depravity you've done against young women? And your new sop is that their women's thinking is the future?
No, I've always believed that women be able to take over. I'm a firm believer and supporter of Time's Up.
Federal prosecutors said yesterday video of Epstein's jail cell when he made his first suicide attempt no longer exists.
And Jeffrey Edward Epstein.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes.
Epstein got away with his crimes because nearly every element of society allowed him to get away with them.
This morning, we're learning new details of the exact cause of death of former registered sex offender and financier Jeffrey Epstein.
The greatest threat that people put in solitary confinement is they try to kill themselves. Imagine that. You're only in a room for 24 hours, you start to go crazy.
I can't wait for that documentary.
Yeah, and when's that coming out?
They haven't announced yet. It was supposed to be early this year, and now it's been, I guess, pushed back to later this year.
Yeah, I mean, they've been teasing that for a long time, and it wasn't even Bannon teasing. It's like been like Roger Stone for like 5 or 6 years has been accusing Bannon of like being a bad guy and like being on Epstein's team and all that. And that's what's really interesting about all this. Like Bannon is one of the most fascinating characters, I think, in this whole fantasy football thing, like soap opera that as Chris Paul has described it. And here's why. Number one, I think he's been in this populist movement as long as anybody. People kind of forget that him and Andrew Breitbart started Breitbart together. He's launched the careers of so many different people, including what's his name from Project Veritas?
O'Keefe.
Yeah, O'Keefe. So he was the one who launched O'Keefe's career doing like the Acorn stuff like way back. That was like 15, 16, 17 years ago. Like the undercover stuff where he went into that Acorn office.
Part, yeah.
Yeah, like dressed as a pimp. Ben Shapiro. Not that I'm thrilled about that. Charlie Kirk. Milo. For those who were paying attention to this stuff during the first campaign, like 2015, 2016, Milo was one of like the biggest online personalities out there. And yeah, he worked for Breitbart. He worked for Bannon. Bannon was the one who gave him a voice. Chris Paul actually said that he kind of knew Milo, and he told me that he thinks that whole the whole gay shtick was like a fish, like fake, like it wasn't actually real. It was like a shtick. But anyway, but yeah, Milo was a very controversial and substantive. He was a figure that had an impact. Point is that Bannon, I think, does the populist movement happen without Bannon? I don't know. Maybe not. But he certainly advanced the ball down the field in a very significant way. And I think unlike a lot of his contemporaries, he understood the enemy in a way that the contemporaries don't, or at least that they don't talk about. Goldman Sachs, like that whole world, the world of finance, the world of banking. He has spent many, 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 many years educating his audience about banking and about finance, like at a very high level, because you can't get into the weeds too much when you have an audience that broad. But he's done it still. He's encouraged people to go look into it. He's encouraged people to pursue those lines of inquiry, and I have, and people like Natalie Winters have. Like she's gone much deeper into it. But the thing that sticks out the most to me, and has always stuck out the most to me, was what happened in August 2017, because after Bannon joins Trump's campaign at the end of the campaign, we're talking like the end of towards the end of 2016. He kind of comes in late summer as the campaign manager. I think they make him the campaign manager, and to kind of, because they said that the official narrative is that the numbers were kind of stagnating a little bit, and they needed somebody to come in and kind of like push it over the top. As the official narrative goes, the story goes, when the Billy Bush tapes come out, which is the grab him by the pussy tapes, every single person in the room in the campaign was telling Trump to stand down, like to step down. They were like, dude, we are like weeks away from the election. We have all the momentum. We're going to defeat the Clintons. Hillary Clinton cannot become president. Step aside. Let Mike Pence like run the ball in, and let Mike Pence be president, and we can kick Hillary Clinton's ass, and like we can save the country. And Bannon was apparently the only person who looked at Trump and said, no, like stand in the breach, own what you did, own what you said, and the American people will stand with you. And that's what Trump did. And of course, the rest is history. But that's the official narrative. That's not speculation, but that's the official narrative, is that Bannon was the one person in the room saying, F that, own what you did. The American people don't care about that.
Right.
Yes. 1 year later, less than a year later, August 2017, after defeating the Bush dynasty, after defeating the Clinton dynasty, the Obamas, all of it, the whole deep state, suddenly we get this like fight between Bannon and Trump, and Bannon's fired from the White House because, for those who were paying attention, I don't know how many people in the audience were, Bannon was a bigger fixation of the media than Trump was. They were writing more stories every day about Bannon and what Bannon was doing than they were about Trump. They were more fixated on him because like the media just hated him so much. And they were writing about like where he was going to lunch, who he was meeting with, like, oh, did you see Bannon walk? Like it was like a tabloid situation. So my speculation at the time, this is like prior to like kayfabe or knowing any of that kind of stuff. When they broke up and Bannon left, I always thought the reason they did that was to give Bannon like the breathing room to go form something outside of the system, like which he ended up doing. He created a media empire around War Room and like Real America's Voice, right? And that becomes kind of like the counterculture beachhead to some extent. He goes and does that. Now, what's really interesting is that now we know that that's not the only thing he did. He reaches out to Epstein after leaving the White House. And suddenly he starts cultivating this relationship with Epstein. And the fact that Trump is calling him Sloppy Steve and saying like, yeah, what a loser, Sloppy Steve, that probably, gives him a little bit of narrative shielding when it comes to Epstein, when it comes to Epstein's friends. And we see some of these conversations, assuming that these text messages and stuff are real, that they were casually talking about this stuff. They were casually speaking about like Trump. And yeah, like if you're cultivating an asset, like if you're an intelligence operative or whatever, and you're playing a role and you're cultivating an asset, you're probably going to lean into that a little bit. Like you're going to be like, oh yeah, Trump's an idiot. Yeah. Tell me more about like what you're doing in finance. Like, yeah. Now the whole 25th Amendment thing is complete and utter bullshit. And let me explain why it's complete and utter bullshit. The text message, let me pull it up, that they're throwing out there is this one. Share my screen. Yeah, that's a nightmare. You can't read that. Let me open this in a new tab. Open image in a new tab. And then zoom in. Okay. So let me just read it to you. It says, Schiff trying to find knowledgeable financial people. It's intriguing as I guess they can't use the best guys at IRS or Treasury. And Bannon, there's no context for what they're talking about there. And Bannon says, wow. And then the date is New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2018. It says, hell of a year. Next will be biblical. Now, everyone's just glossing over the fact that Epstein is using like Q-isms here and talking about biblical events happening. They're also glossing over the fact that Epstein seems to actually be kind of pro-Trump. Like, if you look at the text messages that Epstein's sending out, he seems to be rooting for Trump. That's very strange. He, to some extent. I mean, there's other things where
while Bannon is playing to Epstein, Epstein's also got to be playing to Bannon.
I think there's a little bit of that. That's what I was going to say. I think it's a little bit of like cat and mouse happening.
Yes.
And so Bannon's response is, we either own 2019 or it will surely own us. That's something that he says all the time. Like, we need to own this year. We need to win this year, right? Not just like the midterms. He's just saying like the narrative. And then the response is, I'm back in the FMB biz only. I don't know what FMB is, but I assume that's a place. And then Bannon says FMB director. And then
oh, no, it does not stand for F and blow.
Yeah, he says, no, it does not stand for F and blow. Spoke to my Dems this weekend. Boy, our emotions running high. So he said, like, I just spoke to the Democrats. Emotions are high right now. And then Bannon says, going to blow him up right out of the box. White House has zero plan to punch back Fort Apache with no cavalry en route. He's referring to a historic event at Fort Apache where the Indians just massacred everybody. And then Epstein like picks up on the historic reference and references, and no soldiers in the fort. He really is borderline, not sure what he may do. And then Bannon says, I think it's beyond borderline 25th Amendment or 25th Amendment. And then Epstein responds with a file attachment. Now, the allegation here is that Bannon is suggesting that they use the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office. That is bullshit. Let me explain why that's bullshit. Because if you back up 3 months before that, this is September 21st, 2018. And this is a Business Insider article. If you can't go find the New York Times article, they've removed it from the internet. I'm sure it's out there in some archive site. I couldn't find it on the Wayback Machine. But the New York Times on September 21st publishes an article about Rod Rosenstein. And it says, and then Business Insider basically repackages it and publishes the same thing. And it says, Rod Rosenstein reportedly discussed invoking the 25th Amendment and wearing a wire to record his conversations with Trump. And it says Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein this year discussed using the 25th Amendment to remove President Donald Trump from office and wearing a wire to record his conversations with him. The New York Times reported Friday. Rosenstein is said to have first raised these ideas in the spring of 2017 after Trump revealed classified intelligence to Russian officials in an Oval Office meeting and fired James Comey as FBI director. In a statement to the Times, Rosenstein denied ever having considered an effort to invoke the 25th Amendment or record Trump. Now, this is notable because they do, like years later, talk about the 25th Amendment, and that actually does end up becoming one of their strategies. Like, that's why all of this is very, very notable. The other thing that's notable, CannCon, is now, again, 3 months before Bannon sends that text message to Epstein. So Bannon is obviously referencing, in the context of that exchange, the Rosenstein article. He's referencing the fact that the Democrats, he's responding to Epstein, who says, I just spoke to the Democrats, they're freaking out. And Bannon's like, yeah, like 25th Amendment's on. And he's literally saying that's what the Dems are going to do. And now the entire like apparatus, not just like the anti-Trump apparatus, but the quote unquote pro-Trump, like the uniparty right, is also now pushing this and saying, yeah, even Flynn is out there saying this is bullshit. Bannon has betrayed Trump, etc. Now, I can be bicameral on Flynn. I can be bicameral that Flynn maybe is part of this like wink and nod ruse, right? Now, let me address that. So what's really interesting, I don't ever really go to Q, right? I don't talk about the Q drops, not because I don't believe in them or anything, just because it's just not my methodology. But I was following Q very, very closely from the very first day. And I published this in the news brief this morning. If you go to September 21st, this is the first time Q references the 25th Amendment so many times over the years in all of his posts. But the first time he references it is on the same day, September 21st, 2018. First, he publishes at 2:42 p.m. The New York Times article. He also publishes a Twitter post from Breaking 911. And then he says, goodbye, Mr. Rosenstein. 4 hours later, 3 hours later, 3 hours, 20 minutes later. So that was published at 2:42. Then at 6 o'clock p.m., about 3.5 hours later, he publishes the exact same thing. He publishes the New York Times the same link to the New York Times article. He writes 1 = 1. Then he publishes a Fox News article about Omarosa, and he says, the more you know. Now, let's pull up the Fox News article has also been removed from the internet. But what the Fox News article says is it says that Omarosa basically was running a conspiracy against Trump, and she was kind of doing the same thing. Like she was like going to wear a wire or something like that. It was something about her colluding with the people, the Never Trumpers, to get Trump. Now, what I know from doing the Book of Trump and having actually gone and looked into The Apprentice, which I never had an interest in before doing the Book of Trump, is that Omarosa is the most significant character in the Apprentice lore. I don't even think she won the first season, but she came out of the first season as such like or maybe she did win. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But she comes out as like such a popular figure, like a cultural figure that Trump kind of cultivates, that he brings her back throughout the entire series as like his operative. And he would randomly kind of like put her into the show. He would make her a contestant. He would, she would be like one of his assistants, kind of like evaluating the contestants. And what she does is she goes in there and she stirs shit up. She goes in there and she basically starts drama with the contestants. And she's like, oh, well, he said this and she said that. Very like immature, kind of like petty stuff, which watching it like when I was watching that stuff, I was like, this is so stupid. Like, why would Trump be into this? And Trump's into it. He's like asking her for feedback. He's asking her for intel. He's like, all right, what did they say when you said that? What did she say when you said that? And what Trump is explaining is he's like, I like to see how people react under pressure. I like to see how people are going to react when you throw them a curveball. Like, are they gonna trip up? Are they gonna collapse under the pressure? Are they gonna betray you? And that's very clear. That's what Omarosa was doing. And then when the Celebrity Apprentice starts, he does the exact same thing. She goes in there and is like playing to the celebrities, egos, and like doing all that stuff. I mean, it felt like an intelligence operation almost on a very, very shallow, superficial level. I mean, it's reality television, but that's what she was. She was an operative that was meant as to be deployed as a chaos agent, almost like the Joker, to just be a wrench in the system. So Trump could evaluate how do the contestants react to this chaos agent? Because the people who can keep their cool, keep their head, keep their wits about them, I like those people even more than like the really, really smart, competent people who collapse under the pressure. So now take that framing, that model, that idea of like deploying an operative as a chaos agent, and then apply it to Bannon, or apply it to anyone, apply it to Flynn, apply it to anyone who posts the stuff that seems like, are they going against Trump? Are they going against the movement? I don't know. If Bannon and Trump break up, like, I recognize it as kayfabe before I even knew what kayfabe was. Like, there's no way this is real. Like, Bannon is definitely not anti-Trump. Trump's not anti-Bannon, and that ended up being true. Bannon has been one of Trump's biggest, most vocal supporters, the tip of the spear in the whole populist movement. And then he goes and he reaches out to Epstein. He then goes and does like whatever 18, 17 hours worth of
50. There's
50. Is it 50?
Yeah, they said it was 50 hours. Hold on,
wow.
Let me make sure.
Yeah, I mean, Roger Stone over the years has always said it was like whatever 17, 18, 19 hours, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. 50, even more so. But even like 17 hours worth of interviews. We've seen a 2-hour interview. If you go watch the 2-hour interview, by the way, like, and I encourage people to go do that. The interview between Bannon and Epstein. It's very clear that Bannon does not have the opinion of Epstein that people have painted him as. And I don't mean the pedophile stuff. I'm referring to the stupidity. Epstein, by the mainstream media, by like the apparatus, by the uniparty, has been painted as an idiot savant who basically was given the keys to a kingdom that he did not earn. That basically this guy, and like Ben Shapiro has talked about this. A lot of these like Levin has talked about it. There's no financial record that shows you, like, there's no transaction. It's like, here's the trade that made him all his money, right? The money was basically given to him by Les Wexner, like the properties, the planes, like all that stuff. He was a created character, right? That's the narrative out there. When you listen to Bannon talk to him, Bannon does not seem, now again, Bannon could be like playing into his ego, but Bannon seems to be highly complimentary. Like, Bannon seems to view him as someone who's like a financial genius who really understands the financial system. And to me, that actually makes a lot more sense than him being an idiot savant who was just gifted the keys to a kingdom that he did not earn. Because Adnan Khashoggi, like back in the 80s, comes and plucks him out of Bear Stearns and makes him his personal accountant / money launderer, right? He's laundering money for the biggest arms dealer in the world, like one of the most important organized crime syndicate bosses in the world. I think the guy probably knows how to launder money, and the guy probably understands the financial system better than the average, day trader. So, if that's the case, if Epstein really does like know things to that extent, he understands the system, he's worked in the system, he's laundered money for the system. Is it possible? And I'm just asking questions here. Like, I don't have like a firm theory on this, but I think I'm very suspicious of the entire story now. Like, the entire story as we know it with Epstein. Like, John talks about like speculating as to like, are these allegations about Epstein even true? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, obviously there's creepy stuff going on. No doubt about that. But is it possible that Bannon was the point of contact to Epstein? A lot of people speculate that Epstein might be alive. A lot of people speculate that Epstein didn't. I mean, everyone's like, he didn't kill himself. If he's dead, he definitely didn't kill himself. He was murdered. A lot of people speculate he might still be alive. A lot of people speculate he was taken out of that jail cell and that never happened. A lot of people speculate that he might be like in witness protection, right? That he might have flipped on somebody. Was Bannon the one who flipped him? Was Bannon the one who the point of contact? I'm not saying that that's what I necessarily believe. I'm just saying these are possibilities that we should open our minds to, Because if this guy knew everything there is to know about the financial system, its flaws, how the money's laundered, how the money moves through the markets, how the criminals embezzle and steal all of our tax dollars, he becomes the keystone to everything. I mean, Q talked about the keystone all the time. Find the keystone, you find the, like, you can figure out everything if you find the keystone. What if Epstein's the keystone? What if Epstein's the guy who's like, here's how you do it. Here's how you steal all the money. And then you wash it through the financial system, and then you spit it out on the other side, and it lands in a Credit Suisse account, and it's clean as hell, and you can then go do whatever you want with it. What if he's the one who laid out on film over 50 hours or whatever how that actually works? And the reason he did it was because Bannon was playing into his ego and being like, yeah, fuck Trump. Like, yeah, let's talk about the financial system now. Because it's very clear that, like, Epstein had strong opinions about the financial system and how much of a joke it was. It's very clear from his conversation with Bannon that he didn't have a lot of respect for the financial system, or like thought it was an institution that should be saved, or thought that it was something that was like sacred. Like, I think he viewed it as a big joke. And, you know, the joke was kind of on the middle class, the people. But, you know, that's kind of where I land. I have more questions than answers now about everything, including like what actually was Epstein? Like, what was he doing? Like what was his knowledge base? And what's on that film, the 50 hours between him and Bannon? Because Bannon seemed very interested in the financial knowledge that Epstein had. And right now, Gustavo Petro is out there, the Colombian president is out there talking about taking down the biggest bankers in the world, because he says those are the cartel bosses. He says those are the people who traffic kids. Those are the people who traffic drugs. Those are the people who start wars. I mean, something that all of us have been saying for years, right? But here's a president of a country saying it. If the financial system is going to be taken down, it seems like Epstein might be a guy who would have a very, very interesting ideas on how to do that. Like, he might actually have an idea of how you would go about doing that. And that doesn't mean he's the one who would be plotting the whole thing, like taking down the financial system, but picking his brain like Bannon was doing. Maybe that's how you figure out how to like unwind this thing without destroying the world. Right.
Yeah, I think the whole thing, I mean, the timing of it is going to be right before the midterms. There's political, capital that to be gained with that. I think Bannon was absolutely placating to Epstein, and so I've interviewed some people that are controversial to our ideas. I did one like a month ago with Ash, and I didn't jump at that guy and be like, "Oh, you're an election denier and this and that." No, you gotta be charismatic, right? You got to be charming. You have to say things to build rapport with the person, and then when you get them on camera, you tighten the screws, you turn the screws. And I think that's what Bannon's going to do. And I can't wait to see this documentary. I'm not passing judgment one way or the other. I see people dooming out over Bannon and what was said. He's made clear he was never on the plane. He was never visited the doctor. Sure, the guy sent him watches. Okay, fair enough. I mean, what's the big deal about that? Yeah. So yeah, the timing of it's very interesting. Now, in the tinfoil conspiracy hat, the only thing that better than the Bannon interviews would be a live interview.
Yeah. And I mean, damn, like if Epstein walked in the door and was like, "I'm alive," that's like stop the record in a way that nothing else in the world probably would. Like, that would be like the whole world would stop if Epstein ended up being alive.
Yeah.
Who knows if he actually is, but yeah, I mean, I think all that's interesting. And for people who are dooming out and blackpilling and say like this is all very silly, and obviously Bannon's a bad guy, obviously Trump must be a bad guy too. If you go back and you look at like the story that's played out over the past 6 years, they had so many opportunities to flip the switch in the worst possible way at the worst possible moment, which would have led to their complete dominance of the system. And what I mean by that is January 6th. January 6th was a perfect opportunity to start a violent insurrection. Like, if Q had been like, go, 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 get your guns, go, 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 go. If Trump had been like, go, 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 people would have gone. I mean, people were at that point, I think, in the moment that they would have listened to whatever Trump and Q told them to do. They didn't do that, right? And had they done that, had they actually, like, we started like a violent, kinetic insurrection, the deep state would have been 100% justified to crack down with martial law, to crack down and basically put the whole world in lockdown, the whole country in lockdown. And all the dystopian nightmares that every person has about the future would be our reality right now. None of that happened. They also could have rug pulled Trump and put in DeSantis. They also could have, XYZ. There's so many different opportunities they had to do that, and they didn't do any of it. And now we're like at a point further down the line. I think we're at a point of no return, in my opinion. I don't think there is no going back to that January 6th moment. I think we're way past that moment where you're going to get the whole country, like the whole movement rising up, or at least, enough of it rising up where you could start a civil war in America. And by the way, I've talked about it before, the civil war model is how they overthrow populist leaders who have the will of the people. That's how they did it to Assad. That's how they did it they were going to do it to Maduro. That's how they did it to Gaddafi. A civil war. Like, that's how you do it. So they missed the opportunity. The window's now closed. People are now blackpilling and dooming out. You can't get blackpillers and doomers to pick up guns and go fight the government. They're not going to do that. So, I don't buy into that. I just think that, like, from a game theory standpoint, they missed the opportunity. So, yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and we'll move on to our next subject here. But let's talk about a sponsor real quick before we do that. Folks, they can freeze your accounts. They can shut off your cards. They can lock you out of your own money all overnight. Banks do not protect you. They control you. Speaking of banks, that's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold, real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. This isn't paper gold. This isn't an IOU. It's real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That is power. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer, and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. This wallet is yours forever. All right. And on that note, let's go ahead and jump into our
one last caveat I would say is when Chris Paul says withholding belief is like one of the most important things you can do moving forward, I would 100% endorse that, including withholding belief on like really exciting theories that like Epstein's still alive or Epstein's flipped or any of that. Like, these are just speculations. I'm just saying that, like, we should be open to all sorts of possibilities of what could or would be happening, but we also shouldn't get too swept up in the moment with the emotion and like sold on one idea, because that will be weaponized against us in a very terrible way.
All right. Let's jump into this story here from Just the News. Trump administration finds greater success in immigration cases at the appellate level. Shocker, right? At the federal district court level, where nearly all cases begin, the Trump administration's immigration agenda has faced sustained judicial resistance. Spoiler alert, I mean, or breaking news, I should say. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Trump is facing resistance at the district court level. Last summer, when ICE announced a new policy requiring the detention without bond of all illegal aliens who enter the U.S., it marked a sharp departure from prior administrations. The administration justified the policy by proposing a new interpretation of a 1996 immigration law, which requires that certain, quote, applicants for admission be detained without a bond hearing. So we covered that one like a week ago when the appellate court actually upheld it, saying that, hey, just because President Trump views it this way doesn't mean it's wrong, right? Just because previous administrations didn't choose to view it this way doesn't mean that Trump's wrong. That's probably a better way to word that. So Politico analyzed thousands of immigration detention cases and found that out of 373 federal district judges, they've ruled against the administration at least 3,500 times. 373 judges, 3,500 cases ruled against President Trump. Just 28 district judges have sided with President Trump in roughly 150 cases. That is an insane number right there. What gets even more insane is when you jump down here. Now, the Times examined every judicial ruling addressing Trump's second-term agenda from January 20th through December 31st, more than 500 orders issued across 900 cases. At the appellate level, roughly half of those rulings favored Trump, a markedly stronger showing than at the district level. This pattern was even more pronounced among the president's own appointees. Those judges voted to allow the administration's policy to take effect 133 times, voting against them only 12 times, where 92% of their votes supported the administration. So this is something that we've been talking about, for quite some time now, the opposition that President Trump is getting at the district level. And they get these temporary victories, and the NGOs that are suing him, all of these lawfare organizations go out and herald these as big victories. And then they turn around and get pummeled in the appellate court, where you actually have a panel of judges with more accountability, a better interpretation of the law. You have federal judges who are just, basically favored appointments. Remember the guy who didn't even know what a Brady violation was during a Senate confirmation. So you see this, and I just want to point that out. Like, I think there needs to be some sort of assessment on a lot of these federal judges that get overturned at the appellate and especially the Supreme Court level, where you're talking like when you have a 7-2 decision or better, 7-2, 8-1, 9-0, those judges need to be thoroughly evaluated. The district judges that initiated the ruling, they need to be thoroughly evaluated to see if there's any biases in their rulings, etc. But I'll hand that over to you there.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. I think that's very, very interesting.
Yeah, we talked yesterday about the lawfare. In a separate context, they're introducing a bill that would disclose, litigation investors, basically people that invest in these multi-district litigation cases. But I still want to see somebody turn the screws on the NGOs that are backing these lawfare cases. You can name names. Think of any of the 3 and 4 letter organizations that have been suing President Trump and MAGA broadly for the last 7 or 8 years. So
yeah. And like we're talking about the financial system and like how the money flows. Like that's another great example. It's like the money it's not just embezzled and stolen. It's also sent through a system. It's sent through like a itinerary, if you will, where it goes from the taxpayer to the NGO that is looking to exploit the system and basically expand the power of the system against the people.
Yeah, EC was here, says NAACP is 5 letters. Yes, it is, but 2 of them are the same, back to back. So
it is definitely a 3-letter agency. I love that.
It's definitely, well, not definitely, only cis deal and absolutes, but it's most likely got some 3-letter agency influence over it, I would say. Check out this one from The Hill. Collaboration agreements between ICE and local police soar 950% in Trump's first year. There are 1,372 agreements between local law enforcement and ICE, which is up from 135 in January 2025 when Trump took office. Just think about that. There were only 135 law enforcement agencies around the country that would cooperate with ICE prior to President Trump taking office. Let that sink in. That is absolutely insane.
That is insane.
Yeah, these agreements are legal under Section 287 of the 1996 Immigration Nationality Act, but the Obama administration, citing issues such as racial profiling, ended the 287G model in 2012. From January through early September, agreements increased from 135 to 958 under President Trump. That same month, in September of 2025, ICE announced that it would fully reimburse participating agencies for the annual salary and benefits of eligible trained officers under the model, which obviously incentivizes them then to, join in this operation, because before it was costing them money. The agencies are like, we're not going to pay our officers to go out there and do the federal government's work. So the federal government said, okay, we'll pay them then. And so we basically deputized these guys, which again, going back to J6 and the Joint Terrorism Task Force that were deputized against American citizens, and you had, local municipalities that were operating at the behest of the FBI. That I'm not in favor of. Like federal government coming in and weaponizing local law enforcement against American citizens is overreach, in my opinion, and I don't think it should be permissible. However, using them to simply, hey, hey, we got one of your officers, we got an illegal here that we just detained. You guys want to come get him? Like, I got no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah. And, like, first of all, it's insane. There has to be like an agreement between the levels of law enforcement. Although I do understand, like, the local law enforcement, local jurisdiction, they should always have jurisdiction over the feds. I think that's a very important, like, dynamic in our federalist system. But that's also why I think ICE should be, like, under the military. Like, I don't think DHS should exist. I think ICE should be under the military. Look, if everyone who'd come into the country since Trump left office in January 2021, if they were viewed as legal enemy combatants as opposed to illegal enemy combatants, or unlawful enemy combatants, and I'm not even sure if they're viewed that way right now. Like, if they were uniformed soldiers, like Chinese soldiers, like living in homes, like living in the communities, right? Like, the optics would demand a very different response than what we have right now. The optics would demand the military going in there and fighting these guys door to door, dragging them out by their hair and getting them out of the country, right? The fact that we're dealing with unlawful enemy combatants, hiding behind women and children, using them as human shields, that makes this a much messier and more difficult to navigate optically operation. However, like, remember all the videos we saw of the people coming in, and it was just like a sea of military age men. Like, that was back in 2021, 2022, 2023. Like, I remember Ben Berquan, like, having all those videos of just like thousands of military, like 25-year-old men just coming into the country across the southern border. Like, the military should be going after those people and dragging them out by their hair. Anyone who came in after Trump left in January 2021 should be considered an unlawful enemy combatant, and the military should be the one dealing with it. Like, there shouldn't even need to be collaboration between or cooperation between the local law enforcement and the military, because if we were fighting a war like on Virginia soil, the military wouldn't be asking the local sheriff for permission to come in and fight the soldiers, right? They would just be going in there and doing it and tell them the sheriff, get out of the way. We got to come fight these enemies. So again, it's not a precedent you want to establish. So I understand, like, the reluctancy to go there. Once you open Pandora's box, it could really become something ugly in the distant future. It could be, the precedent. But it's just the optics and the weaponization of the narrative is really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when President Trump declared an invasion at the southern border, the military is the response to that invasion. Under the Constitution, the military would have the authority to respond to that. Now, do I think that President Trump should deploy the military right at this moment? Maybe not. But give an ultimatum. You guys got 3 months. Get your shit together and get out. We're giving you the stipend, right? We're giving you $3,000 to get out and the opportunity to come back legally, right? If we do it this way, it's not going to end pretty. We're going to remove you by force, and you will not be permitted to come back. So the declaration of that invasion kind of lays the groundwork for being able to do that. So, we'll see. But in the meantime, it helps to have the local law enforcement working with you. Here's President Trump on Air Force One talking about the DHS funding and turning that into, he segues that into voter ID. And we've got an update on the whole voter ID thing working here now from Nick Shirley, of all people. Shocker, right?
Will you give your State of the Union speech if we're still in a shutdown next week?
Well, I think I would. Yeah. Wouldn't bother me.
So it's hard to hear, but they're asking, will you still do your State of the Union speech if we're still under shutdown next week? And he says, yeah, I think I would. Wouldn't bother me.
I would give it, yeah.
How are the negotiations going?
With which one? We have a lot of negotiations.
No, with the government shutdown.
This is a Democrat shutdown. This has nothing to do with Republicans. This is a Democrat shutdown. They're upset that the crime numbers are so good. They're very unhappy that the crime numbers are so good. They're very unhappy that there's a movement for getting voter ID. They want voter ID. The population, 98%, want voter ID. They don't want voter ID because they want to cheat at elections. They also want other things. They don't want mail-in ballots. They want to end mail-in ballots, which is corrupt. And one other thing that they're insisting on is proof of citizenship. And the Democrats don't want to give proof of citizenship. They don't want to give voter ID. Think of it. Who wouldn't want proof of citizenship? I ask you, Steve. Who wouldn't want voter ID? And why would you want mail-in ballots if you know it's corrupt? It's a corrupt system. We're the only country in the world that has this system of mail-in ballots. Think of it. The only country in the world that has this system of mail-in ballots, because they cheat. And the fact is they could never get elected if they ever changed. They know it. If you had voter ID, if you had proof of citizenship, they could never win an election. And they know that. And they're fighting to the hill. And I put this down with men playing in women's sports. I put it down with transgender for everybody. I put it down with their horrible open border policy as being ridiculous. They don't want voter ID. No voter ID. And I put that down in the same category with men playing in women's sports. I'm going to add a fourth category. They don't want voter ID. Go ahead.
So that kind of is going to segue into the newest video out from Nick Shirley. He went to California and did one, kind of like the Minnesota fraud that he did that video. He says California is the breeding ground for voter fraud in America as millions of people vote with no ID, month-long election processes, inaccurate voter rolls, dead people caught voting, even a dog successfully registered to vote. And voter verification is all based on your signature, not who you actually are. In the video, I go to locations from California's public voter rolls from the Secretary of State, and not a single location could verify the voter rolls. Irregularities, and he found irregularities in voter numbers per location. 30 plus people registered to vote at one mail store. Voters inaccurately aged at 125 years old. Without any voter ID and negligence from the state government to update their voter rolls, California's one-party system has created a complex system where fraud is inevitable in their voting process. If you appreciate this video, give it a like and share it around. So when I started prepping this morning, Gordon, he had 11 million views. He's up to 13.8 million now. So he's picked up almost 3 million views on this in about an hour. So this thing is going bonkers. We'll play the intro here. I would highly recommend you guys go check it out yourselves. I've only watched about half of it because I just saw it this morning. So I'm going to play probably about 2 minutes of this.
For these individuals as they're registered to vote here, John Thomas and Philip Thomas. Is Gloria here by chance? Because she's 100 years old and she voted last election from here.
Can you see my? I said I want.
I just want to make sure you're not 126 years old.
I'm not.
And do you think it's possible like illegal migrants could be voting?
Do you know where the ballots might have gone? Like for 108 people, that were registered here?
When it comes to fraud, most people think about money. However, there's another potential massive fraud story taking place in America, one tied to the most consequential system in our country, which is our voting system. This has to do with everything about who runs the country and how elections are actually controlled. And if we don't have voter integrity, what even are we? And there's one state that is the breeding ground for potential voting fraud, and that is California, where it can take up to 1 month to count all of the votes, no voter ID, and millions of ballots are cast by mail. And with voter rolls that are extremely vulnerable to errors, such as over 200 people who are over the age of 125 years old registered to vote in certain areas. And now to see how easy it is to vote, I headed to the location to register to vote inside the state of California. Now this is the
All right, so you guys get the point. Again, none of this is going to be new to our audience, especially those that tune into Why We Vote, because, Ash and I have been talking about this for 4 years now. But the exposure is perfect timing. And, it's not lost on me that Shirley was in that meeting with President Trump when he had all the other influencers there in California talking about, or was it California? But they were talking about the Antifa and how they had people on the inside and that kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden, this expose on California on the voter rolls. He went from fraud in Minnesota, billions of dollars in fraud. He got all that, clout and deservedly so. He got a lot of, traction out of that. And now he's going over to California to expose voter fraud and how awful the voter rolls are as the SAVE Act is being pressured. This is turning the screws on our Congress. And also, as President Trump is saying, that even if Congress doesn't act, we'll do it on our own, right? I know of a way we can do it on our own, and I'm going to be signing an executive order here shortly on election integrity. So let it accelerate, as Gordon would say.
So when Trump says, like going back to the first Trump clip you played, when he says they don't want voter ID, who is they?
Everyone, all of them. Yeah. Well, okay, not all of them, because there are some that have been huge proponents of the SAVE Act. So to be fair, But it's
yeah,
both,
but when he says they, like, he's obviously not just referring to Democrats. I mean, that's my position, is that I think he's actually talking about the Republican Party does not want voter ID. I mean, we all remember the leaked audio of whoever that clown was who went and threatened Kerry Lake and said, "Look, there's people back east, Republicans, who do not want you doing this.
Yep.
Who are gonna get nasty if you don't back out." Okay, that's the Republican Party. So all the people cheerleading that, oh, the Republicans are coming, they're going to save the day. They don't want this to happen.
Right.
They want the Democrats to control California, because if the Democrats control California, the shittier California becomes, the better it is for the GOP's fundraising numbers, right? Like, they like the Democrats being a dumpster fire. Like, that is good for their business model. So they don't want to fix that. They have no incentive to fix that. And quite frankly, if the Republican Party was in any way, shape, or form acting earnestly as it claims to, this would have been addressed years ago. Like, this would already be done. This wouldn't be a debate. The people Trump are actually fighting. He's not fighting the Democrats. He's fighting the Republicans, who are fighting tooth and nail to make sure this doesn't get changed, because they love it, which is why they voted to preserve the National Endowment for Democracy.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So again, this is nothing new to our audience, but the fact that Shirley is getting this out there, the fact that it led to such attention during the Minnesota thing. I haven't watched it all so far. It's been pretty good. I'm looking forward to seeing the whole thing. I don't know how in depth he's going to get, but I'm sure we'll be talking about this on Friday's Why We Vote to go further, because I think Ash and I are probably some of the better qualified people to speak about this on a more in-depth level. I've talked about California's registrations and how awful they are, how they literally enable the fraud to take place. Like, they make it impossible. So, and I think I said this yesterday, actually, before the Shirley thing came out, California and many other of these Democrat states, they literally enable this by simply saying you don't need an ID to vote. We have an opt-out automatic voter registration system, meaning you could be registered to vote without even knowing that you were registered to vote. And so, we'll get more into this on Friday, but I just wanted to play that. If you guys want to check that out, Nick Shirley on X has the video up. 13.8 million views, though. Let's go, man. Let's go.
Who cast the deciding vote to preserve Obamacare, to save Obamacare? John McCain. John McCain, that was 8 years ago at midnight. He famously walked in and then he died. Like right after that, just cast the vote to save Obamacare, which is the thing he campaigned against in 2008. Remember that? Remember the whole, John McCain and Obama hate each other. Yeah, right. South Park did the episode about them being, like criminals working together. Like, man, that was accurate. Yeah, but that was 8 years ago. Obamacare has never been addressed or talked about since. The Republicans have had every opportunity to repeal Obamacare and haven't. And it's like, because they want Obamacare. They like Obamacare. They like all these things the Democrats do because it's a uniparty. And it's just, but people keep waving the pom-poms for the Republican Party. And as long as we keep doing that, I think the psyops will continue, and you will continue to have to deal with this just dumpster fire of a political system.
Is that beeping on your end?
Yeah, that was my dishwasher. I'm sorry.
Okay.
My dishwasher.
No, I was just making sure. Like, it sounded like something going off in my house, and I was like, I've never heard that sound before. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think we did an article by Zero Hedge last week that talks about how government's influence over corporations and industry is detrimental to the citizens, right? It creates a massive gap between the upper class and the lower class and the middle class as well, and pushes the middle class further and further into that lower class category, and keeps their foot on their head, right, as they're trying to get above water. And Obamacare is a perfect example of that. Obamacare was one of the most detrimental things that you could ever imagine to healthcare in this country. Instead of going the direction it should have gone and privatizing medicine and taking government funding out of medicine, they went the opposite and went full bore on essentially socialized medicine, to the point where if you didn't have health insurance, they were taxing you. I mean, it wasn't a fine. They called it a tax. And that's the same thing.
My college professor at the time, he was brilliant, like a Russian history expert, said it was akin to when Peter the Great in like 1700 put a beard tax on the Russians. Anyone who had a beard would have to pay a tax for it because he was trying to get all the Russians to shave their beards and start acting more European and like get away from like their Asiatic ways. Yeah. And, you know, the crux of what Obamacare really did is it created such a regulatory environment that crushed the small companies, the small middle class, like they were owned by like families, and, you know, the small insurance companies could not compete because they did not have the horsepower to fill out all the forms and comply with the new regulations. So they all got bought up by the big insurance companies, and a monopoly was formed in every single state. And those monopolies now give money to all the politicians. It's just a big money laundering scheme. And it's definitely communism. It's definitely socialism, the worst kind of socialism. And the Republicans love it. They love it because they're all a bunch of communists.
Yeah, that's why Blue Cross and Blue Shield is consistently one of the top lobbyists or lobbied firms or organizations lobbied in DC. Always them. The hospital association, you know, the medicine industry, big pharma, and all that stuff. Let's go ahead and jump into this clip here. Another clip here of President Trump talking about the Munich Security Conference. And I don't know what you have on geopolitics today, but
a few things, but not much. So we can spend 10 minutes probably on geopolitics, 15.
Okay, we'll start to segue into that here. So this is President Trump talking about AOC just looking absolutely derp as you can imagine, in the Munich conference. By the way, did you see her comment about Venezuela?
Which one?
The one where she said it's south of the equator.
Man.
Yeah.
She's
AOC answering questions in Munich. This was not a good look for the United States. I watched Gavin Newsom answering questions in Munich, and this was a bad look for our country. These two people are incompetent. And at least Hillary's competent. She's just Trump deranged. She was so deranged. She is an angry woman. But I watched the other two speaking and answering basic questions. Look, Gavin has destroyed California. And AOC, I never heard her speak very much. And they started answering questions. She had no idea what was happening. She had no idea how to answer, you know, very important questions concerning the world. But she can't answer questions concerning New York City either, because New York City got some problems.
All right, so we got that clip there, and then we have this clip here of Kevin O'Leary.
This all started.
Oh, why is it going to Crowder? I don't want to listen to Crowder. So Kevin O'Leary was talking about Rubio's remarks at the Munich Security Conference, and I haven't listened to his speech yet, but apparently Rubio gave a really good speech. And, you know, I want to get your take on this. I think he goes a little overboard with the China fear-mongering, but I think broadly.
Before you play this, can I just make a quick note about AOC? Because
Yes.
I saw this floating around online, and I've seen this for years. This isn't like a new thing. But, you know, like when she was at Boston University, she went to Niger, and like I think it was 2009. She went to Niger as part of a study abroad program her trip was funded by USAID. And the speculation, strong speculation, and there's some supporting evidence, I think, to reinforce this, is that her activity there aligns almost perfectly with the 2010 Niamey coup. So there was like a coup in Niger against the government that was overthrown, and then immediately after the coup, like that program is shut down, and BU like stopped sending students there. And I don't know. I mean, speculation that she is like CIA. She was recruited by the CIA. Boston University, I think, probably feeds into that. Yale certainly does. But there's a 25-second clip that might be worth watching of her talking about the mistakes Trump made in Venezuela.
Sure.
Like maybe we should watch this if you want to share my screen. It's a 30-second clip.
It's up.
And by the way, Rubio and the Trump administration left Maduro's regime intact. And so even whatever moralizing they have about it, they're just as much a culprit in ignoring the election results as anybody else. But also, we have to understand that when they come for one, they come for us all.
Yeah, so just pointing out that Trump left the Maduro regime intact, and then this one,
that screams CIA.
Yeah,
or at least playing along to get along with the establishment.
Doesn't mean that we can kidnap
go
head
back.
of state.
It wasn't playing.
Oh, it wasn't okay.
It is not a remark on who Maduro was as a leader. He canceled elections. He was an anti-democratic leader. That doesn't mean that we can kidnap a head of state and engage in acts of war just because the nation is below the equator. And
there's that remark, below the equator. Venezuela is completely north of the equator, folks.
Her logic, by the way, right there is sound. I mean, like, just because a foreign government does something that we don't like doesn't mean that we can I agree with her. I don't think we kidnap Maduro. I think Maduro is actually a cooperating witness that is friends with Trump and has been working with him for the past 10 years. That's what I believe. When she says she accuses him of canceling elections, he didn't cancel any elections. He called out the operatives operating in Venezuela under USAID, Correct. Which would be Correct. her colleagues, basically, who were trying to subvert the government. And Maria Corina Machado is out there right now, like as of this weekend, promising that she's going to seize power in Caracas, that's coming. So has not given up yet.
Hakuna Matata.
There you go.
So we'll be talking more about this tonight on Badlands Book Club as myself, Ash, and Colonel Towner Watkins cover stolen elections and all of the stuff that we just alluded to right there. And it's getting good, man. We're finishing up chapter 7. So tune into that tonight. And Colonel Towner, of course, has some great takes on the intelligence aspect. And then Ash and I kind of tie in the electoral aspect of it. So again, that's at 6 p.m. Eastern. So tune into that tonight. Before we jump into the next clip, I do want to hit another sponsor real quick, guys. I want to tell you guys about something that is not very well known, but is incredibly powerful. It's called Ace Manan. It is a compound from aloe vera that massively supports your body's stem cell production, cell health, and immune system function. It matters because your body replaces about 1% of its cells every single day. And as we age or have health issues, we produce cells less efficiently. The thing is that almost no aloe products have Ace Manan because it breaks down after harvest, and you can't get enough from eating raw aloe because aloe's got a laxative compound. So Emerald Med created a stabilized Ace Manan supplement with the laxative compound removed. Thank goodness for that. It's called Aloe RX, and they made it for pharmacies, and now it's available to the public. I'll explain the value of Aloe RX. Stem cell injections can have an amazing result, but they cost around $10,000 to $40,000 per treatment. Aloe RX isn't the same as stem cell injections, but it massively supports your own body's stem cell production for less than $100. You could literally give your body this for 16 years for the same price as one stem cell treatment. For people who don't need something extreme like a stem cell injection but want to help their body significantly, this is arguably the best value on the market. The longer you take it, the more compounding support that you have. If you want to support a company that supports our channel with free speech with their ads, check out Emerald Med's Aloe RX. Click the link below to learn more and to get 30% off of Aloe RX today. All right. I'm definitely interested in that. I got to do stem cells on my shoulder. I heard it's good for like repairing a rotator cuff. So I do that, man. I got a little tear in there and it's starting to hurt when I play softball, and I am not ready to quit throwing a ball yet. Not yet. I got another 10 years left in me at least. All right, let's jump into this clip. So this is Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, talking about Rubio's Munich speech. And again, I don't have much on it. I plan on listening to it this afternoon. Today's my kind of laid back afternoon. And I'll probably have more on that with Ash tomorrow.
This all started a few weeks ago at Davos on the famous speech Carney gave, the Prime Minister of Canada, with the words New World Order. That did not go well with the Trump administration, as you remember. Actually, it hurt relations with Canada at this point, which hasn't really restarted on the tariff front. The point is, though, we're getting to a place now where there's only one adversary, and I think it's time to just call it out: China. That's it. And so you either are with us, so to speak, against China, or you're not, because China is getting ready for world dominance. And I call it what it is: economically, militarily, AI, power, you name it. Those guys are not fooling around. And if we don't wake up and get together on this, they will be the superpower. Now, if you're okay with that, you want to live in that kind of a world, well, I don't. So I'd like to see this thing worked out pretty damn fast because Europe has to get on board. Canada has to get on board. Everybody that believes in democracy, freedom, and capitalism has to get on board, or you will see those guys walk into your country one day.
I'm curious to get your take on that. I'm not that worried about China economic dominance over us.
Yeah, I think you know, and again, this is where like Matt Ehret takes issue. One of the many things he takes issues with when it comes to Bannon, he kind of points to like Bannon's Jesuit past and points to some of the people he's affiliated with, but his hawkishness towards China. I kind of think that the way I've always viewed the way Bannon talks about China and the financial system is he kind of takes a lot of the things that I think this transnational cartel is doing, and he kind of like assigns blame to China because it gives him some narrative shielding to talk about this in the very fake conservative ecosystem, like the information ecosystem. And that way he's able to educate people like on what's happening in the financial markets, what's happening in the banking system, why it's all fraud, why it's all a ruse, why it isn't at all dependable. Something, by the way, that China has been saying since Xi came into power in 2013. They view our financial system as a joke. They view our banking system as a joke, which is why they don't allow their financial system and their banking system to operate the way that we do, because it is criminal. And they kind of think that we're morons the way that we run it, and they're correct. So, like talking about Rubio's speech, I did listen to it. I did a take on it this morning in the news brief. Yeah, I mean, it was a very America First, like MAGA speech. It was very much looking at Europe and saying, look, guys, we have a common past. Like we have a common culture. We have common ground. I think it was kind of extending the hand to the people of Europe, sidestepping in a lot of ways the elites, because the elites are all a bunch of inbred satanic pedophiles as far as I'm concerned. The reason that America was created, the reason that people left the European continent is because of the elites. It's because the elites were so insufferable that people had to get away from them. That is why, like, the common people were driven out of Europe, and then you had the younger siblings of the elites who didn't have any claim to their parents' throne or whatnot. They came to America as well. But yeah, like Europe is ruled by a bunch of inbred satanic. Maybe they're pedophiles, maybe they're not, but they're certainly inbred, and they're definitely satanic. They definitely hate Jesus, and they definitely are inbred. We know those two things, and a lot of them seem like they are pedophiles. A lot of them are resigning right now because of the Epstein stuff. So the European people need to seize power. They need to seize control of their governments, of their societies. That is their fight to fight, and we will support them spiritually and maybe in other ways as much as we can, but it's not our fight. Like, we can't go around the world toppling governments like they want us to do in the Caribbean simply because we don't like the people running those governments. I do think that Marco Rubio's speech was in a lot of ways just pointing that out, saying, yeah, we're walking away from y'all guys. Like Europe, like we're like, you're in our rear view right now because you don't have a plan. You're basically like a drug addict asleep on the side of the street, like passed out in his own urine. We're going to go do business with the Middle East because they have a vision for the future. We're going to go do business with Russia, with China, because they have a vision for the future. Even South America, they have a vision for the future. You have no vision. Your vision is basically just meandering in your own waste and talking about ideas that just don't make any sense. You're a babbling moron, basically. The elites, right? So the European people need to find the gumption to make their populist movements work, and the populist movements are there. I mean, the populist movements are all over the place. They're probably on the cusp of actually doing something consequential, but until that happens, like, Europe is just kind of a dead weight around our neck.
Agreed. Speaking of Europe, this is a story published by Moscow Times, but it's sourced from AFP, which is French free press, so quote unquote free press. In other words, French intelligence. Russia says it seized a dozen Ukrainian villages in February, Russia's army chief said the Kremlin's forces seized a dozen villages in eastern Ukraine. Moscow's troops were moving in the direction of Sloviansk and an industrial hub that briefly fell to pro-Russian separatists in 2014. That's around the Maidan, and which has been under frequent Russian attack. Moscow forces said that they're about 9 miles from the city, and Russia was, quote, expanding a security zone in border areas in northeastern Sumy and the Kharkiv regions where it controls pockets of territory. And this is just, another play here on, I don't know what Europe is gaining by putting this out there, if they're trying to bolster more support. We just saw yesterday, we reported that for the first time since the war began, the European Union's contributions to Ukraine have surpassed ours, are greater than ours, which should always be the case. We have no dog in that fight whatsoever. So yeah, just, kind of continuing on the whole point that this war is nonsense and that Russia is just dangling, just playing around with its prey. It's the cat, holding the mouse's tail as the mouse tries to run away, that kind of thing. And they also are continuing to call it a special military operation. They have been very, very decisive on that, they're laser focused on that term. And nobody in America picks that up. Like, none of our politicians are like, oh, Russia's war. That's what they call it. Nobody says Russia's special military operation, but I digress. I'll hand it over to you now.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you. I think that the Ukraine thing, like so many other things, I think these are all things that could be, resolved very quickly. They should have been resolved already, quite frankly. So the question is, why haven't they been resolved? Like, what are President Trump and President Putin waiting for to just pull off the veil and just be like, yeah, we're boys, we're buddies, like the sovereign alliance is real. It feels like we are on the cusp of that moment. I mean, you have Unapuna Banka hosting a TPUSA sponsored event in March called the Alliance of Sovereign Nations. Do we need to engage in lawfare against her for copyright infringement? I don't know. That's a discussion for another day. But it's very clear that forces within the MAGA movement are scrambling right now to re-seize control of the narrative, because while a lot of people have been perfectly fine with pushing the Ukraine war is bad narrative, which is obviously the truth, there are people who I think are want to see it continue. There are people who want to see Russia defeated. There are people who still view Putin and his allies as the enemy, people who view Maduro as the enemy. And I think exposing all of those frauds, and that's what they are, is critical, because if we don't expose those people, then they will become the celebrities of the future. They will become the inheritors, the successors of MAGA. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So on that note, I want to start with this story. This is a really interesting story. And I thought I had written about this in the news.
The Maduro connection.
Dude, I went and I thought I wrote about this for Monday's edition of the news brief. Then I realized that I had written it up, but I just didn't publish it. And I was like, that was really dumb. But yeah, so the story here is, I'm just stalling so I can pull up my map. We'll get to that in a second. Russia killed Alexei. This is from Sky News. Russia killed Alexei Navalny with dart frog, UK and allies say. The frog's poison is 200 times stronger than morphine, with Germany's foreign minister saying victims suffocate in agony. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny died in prison in Russia after being poisoned with a deadly toxin found in the skin of Ecuadorian dart frogs, the UK and other allies have revealed. The barbaric act, using a neurotoxin that is classed as a chemical weapon, could only have been carried out by Vladimir Putin's government, they said on Saturday. The poisoning highly likely resulted in Mr. Navalny's death in 2024. Sky News understands that it is likely the toxin was manufactured in the laboratory rather than actually taken from the frogs. It is not clear how the frog poison called epibutadine was allegedly administered to the dissident, who had been in a penal colony in Siberia when he died almost exactly 2 years ago. Indigenous tribes in South America are said to use the toxin in blow darts or blowguns when they hunt. The poison, described as one of the deadliest on Earth, is 200 times stronger than morphine. It causes paralysis, breathing difficulties, and death. Yulia Navalny, the Russian dissident's widow, appeared at a press conference on the sidelines of a security conference in Munich to announce the discovery, flanked by the foreign ministers of the UK, Germany, Sweden, and the Netherlands. The four countries of France have been working together to establish how Mr. Navalny, 47, died. They plan to submit their findings to the International Chemical Weapons Watchdog, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Yeah, this is a really weird storyline. The Navalny thing is very similar to both the Maria Corina Machado narrative, because that's like what Alexei Navalny was. He was the Russian version of her. He's also kind of the Russian version of Charlie Kirk, because his wife, who was like a totally unknown entity before he died, suddenly became like a darling of the Uniparty afterwards, and was like elevated as like this really important political figure, despite the fact she had never like done anything of note politically or publicly before that. Kind of similar to what they did with Eric Kirk. Sorry to say that. It's very, very strange. Very, very strange. But what is interesting is, so here it says right here, another one from Sky News: Putin's Kremlin had possession of frog poison used to kill Alexei Navalny. UK Foreign Secretary claims. So all of these European pedophile, like satanic inbred pedophiles, that's the elite, the aristocracy, just awful people. They're like doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this idea that an Ecuadorian dart frog poison was used to kill this guy while in a Russian prison. He was about to be extradited to Germany, and Putin was complying with that. No doubt he would have been liberated once he reached there, and he probably would have been re-injected right back into Russia to try to overthrow Putin yet again, which is what he was there to do. It's why he was arrested. He was working for USAID, National Endowment for Democracy. Same old, right? The notable part is this. This is where these frogs are found and located. They live right here. So this is Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, and Brazil. And that means that, I mean, my speculation when this story came out on Saturday, like in our private chat, was that, man, they're going to try to link Gustavo Petro and Maduro to this. They're going to say that they're the ones who like gave him the poison or something, right? That hasn't happened yet, but you know, the night is still young. They could still certainly go there, but that is where it feels like the story is going, is that they're going to try to draw a connection between specifically Petro, I think even more so than Maduro, because Petro is the one who is going super hard in the paint right now against Ecuador and saying that the cocaine industry basically operates out of Ecuador now that he's driven most of it out of Colombia. So that's all very interesting, notable. Don't really have much more on that specific story than that, but I just thought I would open it up if you have any comments.
That was my first reaction when I saw that was oh, they're gonna try and pin this on somebody in Venezuela, whether in that region, whether it's Maduro, Petro, Rodriguez. Well, Rodriguez was she was just a vice president at the time, but that was my first reaction too. This is laying that foundation. We'll see when it comes up. I think you're right on that though.
Oh yeah, and I should, while we're at it, I should do this. This is really interesting. The thing I saw, I talked about it on my show on Friday. Let me pull this up. Where is it? It's right. I think it's right here.
You have an Erdogan story up.
Yeah. I mean, let me go to the right screen. So, well, I should play this. This is a really interesting clip from, like we talked about Rubio. Like we should watch this clip. You probably already watched it with Zach, maybe, but yeah.
The world is changing very fast. Right on the old world is gone. Frankly, the world I grew up in, and we live in a new era of geopolitics, and it's going to require all of us to sort of re-examine what that looks like and what our role is going to be. And we've had many of these conversations in private with many of our allies. We are our allies, and we need to continue to have those conversations. And I think Saturday, hopefully, and the meetings we'll have there will move to an end. The world is changing very fast.
So that was when he first arrived in Germany for the Munich conference. Really interesting comment from him where he says, the world is changing very fast. The world that we thought we knew is over. And I think he's kind of speaking to like the boomer generation in a lot of ways, like not just the American boomers, but the European boomers. where it's like everything you think you know about the world, it's time to just kind of like erase all of that and start fresh. Because, you know, I still see people like in the comments and the chats who are like, Iran is the most evil thing that's ever crawled out of hell, and we need to bomb it back into the Stone Age to make sure that our children are safe. And it's like, I like to engage with those comments as if they are earnest people who actually believe that, and not like a bot that's been deployed to, you know, start that conversation. But again, if that's your worldview, then you haven't learned a damn thing in this movement, like, because that is exactly what we're trying to get away from, is that worldview that because you don't like a country's culture, that they should be destroyed kinetically in a forever war, so that we can satiate some sort of a bloodlust or an agenda by a specific group that wants to see that specific government toppled. Now, the thing that I wanted to show you real quick was this from Gustavo Petro. So this is a post that he made back on the 12th, which was, I think, Thursday. And he is quote posting this guy. This guy is Diosdado Cabello. And he said, it says right here, Diosdado Cabello, this guy was the head of security. He was like the minister of security and intelligence under Maduro. He also happened to be one of the few officers, military officers in 1991 that helped Hugo Chavez try to overthrow the government at the time, which failed. And then Chavez went to prison for several years, and then he became president in 1998. But so Diosdado Cabello has a deep history with Chavez and Maduro.
I believe he is also alleged to have been a secret lover of Delcy Rodriguez, according to Stolen Elections. They talk a lot about Cabello.
Do they really? You need to send me those articles, because there's also a narrative out there that there's a power struggle between him and Delcy Rodriguez right now, and that like a lot of the people in the deep state thought this guy was going to be the next man up when Maduro was deposed. So that's an interesting dynamic. It says right here, Diosdado Cabello said on his program Con El Mazo Dando that the proposal made by President Gustavo Petro to his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump to carry out military actions against drug trafficking on the border between Venezuela and Colombia had already been made a year earlier by Nicolas Maduro to Petro. And then the Colombian president did not respond to him. Quote, now he goes to the United States to say that it's his idea, Cabello assured. I think that's how you say his name. So the president of Colombia, Petro, who he's referring to, quote posts that video and says, Diosdado is right, but he's mistaken on one detail. I proposed to Maduro that we advance joint operations between the two countries, Colombia and Venezuela, along the border to stop the ELN, which is the National Liberation Army, which works for the Sinaloa Mexican cartel. When the dialogue with the ELN froze, and that dialogue, Venezuela, just like Norway, had been helping as a guarantor country since the Santos government, which is the old Colombian government. Between the ELN and the Colombian state, a ceasefire was never agreed upon. The murder of nearly 200 peasants by the ELN and its conflict with the 33rd Front in Catatumbo. Furthermore, I invited the United States under the Biden administration, spoke with Macron and with Maduro to carry out a naval blockade on the route to Haiti in order to stop the flow of drug trafficking to the island, which comes precisely from cocaine originating in Catatumbo. That flow finances the gangs that are destroying Haiti. So what he's saying is that everything that's been happening in Haiti, like during the Biden administration, that's all being financed by the drug cartels. Like the drug cartels are the ones that destroyed Haiti, which is interesting. So I'm not going to read this whole post; it's a long post. But what he's saying here is we now have confirmation from both one of the most powerful people in Maduro's government, Diosdado Cabello, and the president of Colombia, that Nicolas Maduro and Gustavo Petro were talking to one another about doing joint operations against the cartels for at least a year. That flies in the face of everything that the deep state, including the uniparty right, including Con Inc., including the MAGA movement, like our beloved leaders in the MAGA movement have said about Maduro over the past year, that he is like the head of the cartels and why would the head of the cartels be proposing like a joint military operations against the cartels to like the head of Colombia? You know, so I think we need to abandon that narrative that Maduro was like the head of the drug cartels. That's obviously a bold-faced lie. And when people say it, we should just call them out and say, I'm sorry, but you're operating off of obsolete information, right? Like that's not, just like Joe Biden didn't win the 2020 election I'm sorry, but Maduro is just not the head of a drug cartel.
We have absolutely decimated that claim on Badlands Book Club with Colonel Towner. But let me correct the record here, Gordon, and read this segment about Cabello and what I was saying. It says here, shortly before the crash, Alfredo Anzola, who was in a plane crash, Alfredo Anzola discovered irregularities in Smartmatic's contract with CNE, which is the Council for National Elections in Venezuela. People have speculated the crash wasn't an accident because, according to rumor, Anzola, who is the lover of Delcy Rodriguez, Jose Rodriguez's sister and the Minister of Presidential Affairs, had also entered into an affair with the wife of the governor of the state of Murata, Hugo Chavez's close confidant and head of the Cartel del Sol, Diosdado Cabello. Pictured on the upper right, Anzola survived the crash, and Cabello arranged for the transfer of a badly injured Anzola from a local hospital to one in Caracas, but Anzola never made it to Caracas. According to reports, he was badly tortured and died. Author Rory Carroll nicknamed Cabello the Octopus for having, quote, tentacles everywhere. He was described by The Atlantic as the Frank Underwood, who uses a network of patronage through the military ministries and pro-government militaries known as collectivos. And while serving as president of the National Assembly from 2012 to 2015, he made it a habit of ignoring constitutional rules, and it goes on about them. But we've talked a lot about Cabello. The Anzola thing's interesting because Colonel Towner on the show was like, I looked into it, and there was never any rumor of a transfer. He died in the hospital. The guy Anzola, it's alleged that he was killed because he was going to whistleblow, but it wasn't by Cabello. There was no involvement there whatsoever. It was probably killed by a three-letter agency.
Yeah, and I see people in the chat saying that they were once partners, but they aren't anymore. That's bullshit. Like I've done the homework, I've done the research.
Who was once partners?
That Maduro and the drug cartels were once partners, but no, they weren't. The guy who was president in 1991 that Hugo Chavez tried to overthrow with the help of he was a George Bush CIA installed puppet. He was the one helping ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips exploit and steal all of the oil money from Venezuela. Hugo Chavez was trying to overthrow the Bush dynasty in Venezuela in 1991 and then succeeded in 1998. And then his right hand man was Maduro. So they were
his right hand man was Cabello.
Cabello
didn't want to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, and then later Maduro, but like Cabello was kind of like his security guy. Like he was the guy like running intelligence and running security, whereas Maduro was like his political like protege. But the whole time
they're totally manipulated by Castro.
The whole time they're fighting the cartels, though. The whole time they're fighting the cartels. The cartels are not backing them because the cartels are in bed with the CIA and the Bush dynasty. They are the Bush dynasty. So they are fervently trying to keep Maduro and Hugo Chavez out of power the whole time. They want the oil companies in there stealing all the money. Like that is the system. So anyway, I digress. The last thing that I wanted to share, because I know we're running up against the clock here, was this story about Erdogan. So the TLDR in Iran is that Lindsey Graham is still in Israel right now. He's back in Israel yet again, shilling for war. All of the same old television characters are demanding that American sons and daughters die in a war with Iran. He was even asked the other day, yesterday, I think, whether American soldiers would die if we were to attack Iran. And he said, yeah, like Iran probably will respond by bombing our bases, but that's what they signed up for. And we're prepared for that. So he is willing to sacrifice American soldiers to do this. That's how like bloodthirsty and psychotic these people are. And these are the same people who say Maduro is evil. These are the same people who say the financial system in the West is the greatest thing of all time. They're absolute demons. This is really interesting. This is from Arab News. Over the weekend, there was this like sweeping psyop online on X that said that MBZ was dead. Let me see if I can find the exact. I got it right here. So this was just one of many posts, but this one like kind of went somewhat viral. This is from Dr. Sam Youssef, who has like 750,000 followers. It says, breaking, Turkish media reports death of MBZ following a brain stroke. Turkish media outlets are reporting that UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed has passed away due to a sudden blood clot in the brain. This follows a wave of deleted official statements regarding his health status. Now, he has a screenshot of UAE outlet. I couldn't find this like story that he had like taken a picture of. They may have deleted it. But it's written in Turkish, so I can't read like what it says, right? But that's what he's alleging. And many, many other people, like there are people out there just running with this, influencers saying that MBZ is dead or he's like had a stroke and he's completely incapacitated, whatever. We have this story then from the UAE, or I'm sorry, from Turkey. Erdogan postpones UAE visit saying leader has health problems. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Sunday announced he was postponing a visit to Abu Dhabi because Emirati leader Mohammed bin Zayed had a health problem, then deleted the message. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Sunday announced he was postponing the visit because MBZ had a health problem, then deleted the message. The message posted by Erdogan's team on X said he had talked with Al Nahyan, which is MBZ, by phone. Quote, during the course of the call, President Erdogan expressed his sadness over the health problem experienced by President Al Nahyan and wished him a prompt recovery, said the 3-paragraph message. Erdogan would travel to the UAE at a later date, still to be determined, the message added. So now we're in like this weird situation because I've tried to go back and backtrack it. It seems like this message was out, like this narrative was out there before Erdogan posted this online. It seems like his post almost like fueled the speculation and like sent it into like the stratosphere in terms of people accepting it as real. They've put out statements now saying that they had a phone call, like nobody believes it. Who knows what the hell is actually going on? But the fact that Erdogan is now involved in this and he's like thrown himself into this psyop is very interesting. The decision to post something like that and then immediately delete it doesn't feel like an accident. And it kind of lines up with all the other patterns we're seeing, which is, like the General Flynn versus Bannon op, which is happening right now. General Flynn basically saying that Bannon's a bad guy, right? Which is a strange development. We see like a lot of these fractures happening because the UAE and Saudi Arabia have been narratively splitting apart over the past month, where Saudi Arabia is joining alliances with Turkey and Pakistan and Egypt, and the UAE is joining alliances with Israel, India, Britain, and it's very strange. I don't know what to make of it, but it seems to me that certain players that are very, very close to Trump, Erdogan being one of them, is fueling the psyop. And he's like, oh yeah, MBZ's dead. MBZ's got health problems. Who knows? Maybe they will announce the guy's dead. But they haven't yet. And there's been no confirmation of it from anybody. Nobody's even said, oh yeah, he's in the hospital. Oh yeah, he had the flu. Oh yeah, whatever. So I don't know what to make of it other than just to say that the psyops are very real. They're being fueled by Trump. They're being fueled by General Flynn when it comes to Bannon. They're being fueled by Erdogan when it comes to the UAE. It kind of feels like I talked about at the beginning of the show with Omarosa, like chaos agent, like people coming in and just throwing smoke everywhere. And there's just smoke bombs going off everywhere. And nobody knows what the hell is going on or what the hell is real and what the hell isn't. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is to just withhold belief and be like, I don't have a firm opinion on whether or not the UAE leader is alive or dead. I don't have a firm opinion on whether or not he's a good guy, because the narrative that's out there now is that he's betraying all the Muslims and basically like selling out to Israel. And to that point, I have a video here, and then we'll end the show here. This is weird. This is from Saturday. Here is Lady Lindsay in Israel making really weird, just random statements about the UAE leader. This is the day before Erdogan posts about the guy potentially being dead or having like health problems.
This trip is a special trip for me. It's putting a fine point on something I've been working on for over 2 years. I leave from here to go to the United Arab Emirates. Bibi wanted me to tell the press that he's amazed by the level of cooperation and the significance of the partnership of the United Arab Emirates with Israel, that MBZ has done everything asked and then some, that they've been a stalwart partner, reliable partner under difficult circumstances. And I want to go there tomorrow and acknowledge MBZ's leadership and suggest that America improve its capability to defend the United Arab Emirates and the region. This trip is special.
I never saw that materialize. I never saw Lindsey Graham actually go to the UAE and do any of the things he just described doing. Maybe that's forthcoming. Maybe it got delayed for the same reasons that Erdogan got delayed. I don't know. But I also have seen plenty of evidence that everything he just said is not true, that the opposite is actually true, that MBZ has been actually, the UAE has been very frustrated by the way that Israel's proceeding, and they're basically trying to back out of the Abraham Accords now because of the behavior of the Israeli government. So I don't know. But the fact that he makes that statement, is it a threat? Is it a threat to MBZ? Is it Netanyahu trying to turn the Muslim Ummah, like the community, against MBZ because he's trying to cast him as a traitor, cast him as kind of like an Israeli puppet? I don't know. But it seems to me that the psyops are everywhere, and the television characters are kind of like jockeying for position on like who's on the inside, who's on the outside. And there's definitely like a realignment that's happening.
Very interesting. We do have to start to wrap up here. I did find one thing that I want to bring up here before we end. We can go a little bit over because John's not using studio today, so we can go a little bit over today. I found something interesting on Bannon, and I don't know if you knew this, but it definitely makes our discussion earlier today a lot more interesting. So we'll get to that here in just a second. Before we do that, we've got to close out our final sponsors of the program. Guys, have you tried 1775 coffee yet? Now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped with only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because Freedom isn't scooped with plastic, a frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler. $170 worth of coffee and gear for just $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. All right. And then let's also talk about soft disclosure, guys. Quick question for all you gentlemen out there. Is your beard intentional, or is it just happening to your face, kind of like mine is today? If it's dry, crunchy, or doing whatever it wants, that's not rugged. That is neglect. Soft Disclosure Beard Oil fixes that. A few drops, softens the hair, conditions the skin underneath, and takes your beard from chaotic to dialed in. No grease, no overpowering fake scent, just clean ingredients that actually work. And now we've added the upgrade, the new boar bristle beard brush. Again, say that 5 times fast. They added another one in there. Board bristle beard brush, engraved with the Soft Disclosure logo, proudly made in the USA. I think there's a correction on that. I think it's put together in the USA, but again, I'll have Ash correct me on that tomorrow. Real bristles, real control. It distributes the oil evenly, trains the beard, and makes it look like you meant it to grow that way. And here's the move. When you grab the beard oil, you can add the brush, the Boar's Bristle Beard Brush, for 25% off. The brush by itself, full price. So do it right. Soft Disclosure Beard Oil and the new Boar Bristle Brush. Visit softdisclosure.com and level up your beard game. And mine was out of control, but throughout the show, I've been grooming it and getting it in location. There you go.
I finally got it. It came here on Friday, so I've been using it. And I got to say, man, the first time I ever read the ad was on Friday, like right after it arrived. And it talked about the crunchiness. And I was like, that's exactly what my beard was. It was crunchy. Now it's svelte. Now it's very svelte.
This is going to get clipped, but did you put it in wet or dry?
Dry. Just
you got to put it in wet.
What?
Got to put it in wet. Yep.
Like when you get out of the shower?
After you get out of the shower, just take a towel, dampen your beard a little bit, and then immediately put it in. Game changer. Game changer.
Interesting. Yes. Well, it works dry too, but it's man, like it's definitely way softer. It's very svelte, like the boar brush works. And despite that, I have a little baby beard compared to yours, but man, I definitely recommend it. Definitely recommend if you're gonna have a beard, the oil makes it far more pleasant, not only for yourself, but my daughters complain far less about. They actually rub their face up and they're like, "Oh, is it softer? Is it softer?"
All right, so check this out before we get out of here. I found this kind of just asking questions around in the background. From Business Insider, this was in December of last year. Steve Bannon discussed using an obscure legal tactic to join Jeffrey Epstein's legal team. Have you ever seen this?
No.
Listen to this. Epstein and Bannon discussed using an obscure legal maneuver that would technically make Bannon part of Epstein's legal defense team. In the communications with the House Oversight Committee obtained by subpoenaing Epstein's estate, Bannon and Epstein discussed forging a Covell agreement, a type of legal arrangement that extends attorney-client privilege to non-lawyers. That agreement could protect the footage from public release under the shield of attorney-client confidentiality. Quote, we need to talk about Covell, letter and black bag. Epstein texted Bannon while discussing filming. Quote, as in Covell agreement, accounting and finance, legal and privileged. Attorneys typically use Covell agreements when they need the expertise of non-lawyers to assist them with legal work. You know, I thought that was really interesting. And then so I was playing around with AI in the background. And remember, Bannon said, New York Times said one of the things Bannon suggested was using attorneys recommended by Bannon, his own. Regarding Steve Bannon, there's no evidence that Bannon's attorneys worked for Epstein. However, Bannon discussed a Covell agreement with Epstein, a legal arrangement that would involve Epstein's lawyers, including Darren Indyke and potentially Reed Weingarten, to classify Bannon's documentary interviews as part of Epstein's legal defense, thereby shielding them under attorney-client privilege. So that's pretty interesting. If they actually do have that agreement, then Bannon, once Epstein's dead, I think he still maintains attorney-client privilege, but he can waive that, I think, on his own. So is that how Bannon was able to get, was Bannon able to get that attorney-client privilege and get Epstein to go deeper on a lot of these topics, not just the sex trafficking aspect, but also the financial aspect?
The financial stuff, dude, that's so fascinating. Holy crap. And look, I mean, you're crazy if you don't, if you think Bannon was as involved as he has been. I think he definitely was. He had to have known that Epstein was in the crosshairs, or Epstein was on the board, the big board of all right, these are the things, the players that we need to go after. And they did go after him, right? They went and arrested him in 2019. So even though he left the White House in September of August of 2017, he was still talking to people from there. I mean, he was still involved. I mean, he was running the war room in 2020. He's not going to go buddy up with Epstein, who's about to be exposed to this major figure. If he's actually a bad guy and he's actually trying to work against Trump. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know.
Smay60 in the chat says, okay, got it. Bannon and Epstein moles, good guys, about ready for a sting. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think
I don't know if I go that far. Yeah,
I think I would go as far as Epstein was a mole. I do think Bannon infiltrated Epstein, gained rapport, handled him and was able to get into that circle. I also think that Epstein knew that Bannon came fresh off of, Trump's administration and knew the
things,
relationship that they had, and had to understand that even though Bannon left, he still had Trump's ear. And Epstein, I think, was jockeying for a potential pardon, potential, an informant, as an informant to roll on these people. And I think there's a ploy here. And I think this is Bannon having that Covell agreement and doing 50 hours with Epstein, I think leads more towards, especially when you factor in the negotiations 2 weeks before Epstein killed himself, and Epstein talking to Bannon about solitary confinement being a breeding ground for suicide attempts. Man, I think this is really shaping up for the potential that either Epstein gave a complete and total, what would you call it? Expose, he exposed everything to Bannon in that 50 hours, or potentially he is still around and he's the witness that comes in, surprise witness to impeach other witnesses.
It's very possible. And look at the timeline. Bannon leaves in August, September 2017. That is after Trump goes and does the sword dance in Saudi Arabia. A month, that's May. A month later, June, MBS is formally named as the crown prince. He wasn't before that, which represents the usurpation of MBN, Mohammed bin Naif, which is the CIA puppet. And basically that starts the trajectory that ends with the purge in November. So November 2017, we then get the Saudi purge, right? We know that Epstein was talking to the Saudis, he was offering his financial consultancy for free. He was like, you don't have to pay me. I want to be a part of this. I want to help. He's watching like his friends. He worked for Adnan Khashoggi who's a Saudi for years, right? I mean, he was like his personal money launderer. He's watching all these people align themselves with Trump. He's watching like the world shift and change. Maybe he soured on some of his old partnerships. I mean, like everyone operates at their own incentives, like their own incentive structure. Like who knows what Epstein was actually thinking? It doesn't mean that he's altruistic or good necessarily. It could just be him being like, I want to feather my nest to make sure that I don't end up on the wrong side of this. I see which way this is all breaking, and this is breaking against my old partners. Maybe I should get on the other side and help rat out my old partners. Maybe I can curry some favor and like you said, like get a pardon. Yeah,
exactly. All right, let's jump into Rumble Rants here. Lee Walden, Lonesome Dove was a special film. Yeah, Robert Duvall and Tommy Lee Jones. Great series. Yeah. Villas 34, y'all need to watch the 92 film Newsies with Robert Duvall as Pulitzer. That film's what got me started learning all about yellow journalism, fake wars, media propaganda. It's all hidden in plain sight. Ooh, I'm on that. Thank you for that recommendation.
Interesting.
Newsies, 1992.
Hey, what's up, Lee? What's up, Lee? Good to see you, man.
Emerald Dragon, good to see you. Morning, gents. Beard is starting to look good, Gordon. No homo. Ken, I sent you a story to check out on X. Rhode Island back in the news.
What?
Oh, I didn't cover
Emerald Dragon, you want to kiss me or something?
I didn't get to cover that because we went off track. But yeah, we'll talk about the trans shooter that killed his family. What a sick fuck. Did you see this story?
Yeah, I didn't look deep into it. I just kind of saw like
he killed his ex-wife who left him because he became trans, killed his ex-wife, killed his daughter, and 2 other family members and a family friend are in the hospital while his son was playing hockey. What a sick
mental illness and demonic possession, man. I think that's very real here.
There's no justification for that, man. None whatsoever. Artsy Joan, can't President Trump stop mail-in voting by executive order? Thanks for another great show. I don't know the avenue that he could, but he seems to think so. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they came up with. Lee Walden, I believe Trump already has RO signed in restraining order signed in 2019 with election matters through DHS National Security. It's in his first term. I don't know what the RO is. EO? I'm not sure. Huck Fillery, another buck from Huck. Can you sell me on Nashville Gart? I'm interested, but have a bit of sticker shock. Gart is an experience like you have never experienced. If you've been to like these events, like I'm not going to throw out specific names, but if you've been to these conferences and these speaking events and stuff, Gart is nothing like those. I mean, those events, you go and you watch somebody speak and then like you kind of walk around aimlessly. Gart, like you'll be out like having dinner and partying with all of us. Like we all go out together and we all like everybody. It's a very interactive event. It's not like
like we get off the stage and we go and we sit down at the tables where everyone's like sitting at the panels. It's like we just like all right, we're off the stage and then we just go like sit down at the tables where everyone else is sitting. It's not like roped off between. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
And you'll meet other Badlanders you guys will get into like little groups and we'll be like, hey, we're going to do this. You want to tag along? And you'll go, Nashville's got a ton to do. I don't know. But like in Deadwood, they go to the Mount Rushmore and then you go to what's the other one that they went to? Like the house that's like zero gravity or reverse gravity.
I didn't get to go there, but I really want to go to that. That place seems wild.
All right, next time we'll go. But yes, I'm telling you right now, Gart is an amazing time. Amazing time. The chat will tell you.
And Lee, I know Lee from Gart, so that's why I recognize his name. I think he meant EO because the R is right next to the E on the keyboard. So I think he meant EO signed in 2019.
John W. Ryan IV. Not sure if this is true, but I heard a claim that if you drop a file from the Epstein files into a Word doc, the redactions will be removed. Interesting if true. Have not tried it though. So I think that was an earlier bug that they had. I haven't seen if they fixed that or not. I think they fixed that. So yeah, there you go. Fat chance. Garts are a blast, no doubt. Probably a couple others that have said. Can attest, Gart is awesome time. We met Emerald Dragon and his wife. I can't remember if it was wife or fiance at Plymouth. I think I'm going to Deadwood. Will be my first. Jana LN, can't wait. Deadwood's fantastic. Deadwood, Nashville is going to be epic.
I've never been to Nashville, so I'm excited about Nashville. But
Nashville is so much fun, man. Christy and the girls are going to be doing the Alphas Make Sandwiches. Girls are going to be going crazy with the line dancing and all that stuff. So I will probably find a casino like I did at Deadwood and just disappear. No, I'm just kidding. All right. That's all we got, ladies and gentlemen. Ghost, what do you got coming up, brother?
2 o'clock, geopolitics with Ghost. Plenty to discuss. We didn't really get into a lot of geopolitics today, so that just leaves us a lot more meat on the bone. War with Iran, right? We're gonna have a war with Iran, guys. I don't know if y'all heard, but we're definitely gonna 1,000% go bomb Iran.
Yeah,
because and Trump loves to telegraph that before he does it. He loves to like hold a press conference and be like, "Here's exactly where we're gonna bomb" before we do it.
Yep. And then also we've got Badlands Book Club coming up at 6 p.m. So tune into that if you want to get a little more on the Venezuela insight. And boom, there we go.
Sweet.
And where was it? Oh, what did they say? There were more Gart comments in there. But yeah, Gart's awesome, man. Check it out. And we'll see you guys later.
Thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.